to step down as Britain's Prime Minister and Labour Party leader, Harold Wilson described the achievements of his four governments and projected Britain's economic outlook in inevitably hyperbolic terms. He cited valid indications that Britain's long ailing economy is beginning at last to turn slowly upwards, but he omitted the fact that he is the Prime Minister who had to preside over an unprecedented decline of the British pound to an astonishing low of $1.92 only last week. He claimed for his administrations the achievement of a higher level of social justice and equality that our people has ever known, but he neglected to say that many of those gains have been eroded by one of the worst inflation rates in Europe. Mr. Wilson says the government's counter-inflation policies, which necessitated scrapping much of Labour's social and economic program, have been accepted by the great majority of the nation. But he fails to add that the government's plea to slash public spending by $3.4 billion in 4 years was defeated only last week in Commons with the help of a die-hard left-wing faction of his own party. In his tendency to pass off appearance as substance, and in his fascination for precedents, records, and figures, Mr. Wilson's style is reminiscent of that of Richard M. Nixon. Thus, his announcement points out not only that he has been Prime Minister longer than any peacetime predecessor in this century, but that he answered more than 12,000 questions in Commons, addressed an average of 100 political meetings a year, and read an average of 500 official documents per weekend. Mr. Wilson's administrations have by no means been devoid of accomplishments, and he deserves much of the credit for leading the Labour Party back to power in 1964 after 13 years in the wilderness, and again into office in 1974 against heavy odds. Indeed, if his cabinet was not the most experienced and talented team in this country, as he claims, it has been minister for minister superior to the conservative government it replaced 2 years ago. A good deal of Mr. Wilson's comportment to in office and out can be explained by his obsession at all cost to hold together the disparate elements that make up the Labour Party. That overriding objective, arising from the deep wounds inflicted on the party by J. Ramsay MacDonald's venture into coalition government in the 1930s, goes far to explain Mr. Wilson's backing and filling on issues, his passion for balance in his appointments, and his unwillingness to have a definitive showdown with Labour's unruly left wing. At substantial cost to his reputation and his record, Mr. Wilson has been able to keep government and party together during trying times and to outmaneuver both his Tory opposition and his own left wing when it was necessary. He solicited Britain's membership of the European community over left-wing opposition by resorting to an unprecedented national referendum on the issue, which many will believe was incompatible with the parliamentary system. He kept Britain firmly inside the NATO alliance despite left-wing sniping and the economic necessity for severe defense budget cuts. He maintained an influential British role in a rapidly changing Commonwealth of Nations, and he preserved a relationship with the United States which remains special despite all the attempts to downgrade it. Whoever is elected by the Labour members of Parliament to take over the reins of government and party from Harold Wilson, be his name Henley, Callaghan, or Jenkins, is likely soon to discover that those were considerable achievements after all.